Hello, welcome to day 3. You can call it. We're actually going to be doing this in our in-school classes the same day as we did anatomical positions. So I'm just going to go ahead and record it now and put it on for you online, or so that you can do it this week at home sometime. That's the joy, huh? Is you guys can just burn through it all at once if you want, or just do it in little pieces and come back when you're sick of it, leave, come back when you're ready for more. So this first part is called, it is called the History of Medicine, and Unit 1, Introduction History of Medicine. So you'll have these notes that you can print out. Again, if you need the physical things, tell me beforehand. I'll put the whole packet together and put it at the front office for you to pick up. So go ahead and just fill in the things that seem interesting to you. Now, you don't have to write every single thing word for word. And one good thing is that you can always refer either back to this, or you can just go straight back to the health science page and just look at the PowerPoint without me speaking. Okay, so that's on there also for you. So in ancient times, in primitive times, people thought that illnesses were caused by supernatural spirits and demons, because they really didn't have this concept of cleanliness and germs, right? And so tribal and witch doctors would perform ceremonies that would help to drive out evil spirits. They also did try to use herbs and plants for medicine. There was also a thing they used called, trephining. It's been a year since I've talked about this. So it's where you bore a hole in the skull and hoping to release whatever spirit or demons or bad things was in there. Okay, so they would actually like drill a hole into the skull. Okay. And then in ancient Egyptians, they were the earliest people to keep health records. That is important to know. They identified diseases, so they had certain names for certain diseases. They used medicines actually to heal different diseases too. They splinted fractures, so if with broken bones, they figured out how if you splinted it, that it would grow back. If you could get it back in closer into the right place, it would grow back. And then they used bloodletting with leeches back in Egyptian times. And so this is still something they do today for certain things. But the idea was that the leeches, if you put them at part of the body that needed more blood flow, and blood flow would help with cleaning out and getting rid of illness and stuff. So they would put the leeches on the end of it so that as they sucked blood through, that blood would come through, okay? Or the leeches would be sucking out the bad blood, okay? So that's what this bloodletting with leeches was used for. Even today, for some dermatology reasons, they'll use it, or to get blood flow back to an area. Say like after some cosmetic work is done or whatever, they might even use blood leeches to try to get the blood flow and connections of blood flow through that area again. And Egyptians would still, though, call upon the gods. They really thought that that gods helped in the healing and all this stuff. Moving on to the ancient Chinese, they were the first to use acupuncture therapies. And so today still acupuncture is very important. Yeah, my husband's asking if I want the lights turned on. We'll turn the lights on out here. It's beautiful out here today. I'm actually in here, they're inside watching the Jazz game. So ancient Chinese were also the first to treat diseases with stone tools. Okay, so they're actually using tools. Ancient Greeks, moving on to them. So they studied the cause of disease. So they're trying to find out why. Why does it happen, right? And Hippocrates was called the father of medicine. If you hear, even today still, the doctors will take the Hippocratic Oath when they're sworn in, right? When they finish medical school. So the Hippocratic Oath, it is their code of ethics, and it's patterned after Hippocrates, who was the father of medicine. Aristotle dissected animals, and he is called the founder of comparative anatomy. So back then, even at this time, like to dissect or to actually cut in and study bodies, human bodies, was not acceptable. They just wouldn't do it. But so Aristotle, though, was the first to do this on animals. And pretty cool, because then you can really get into seeing muscles and bones and blood vessels and things, right, and nerves and all the things that make our bodies so incredible. Moving on to ancient Romans, okay, they were the first to organize medical care, really make it a system. Their earlier hospitals were actually in doctors' homes, and they developed a sanitation system. Okay, why is that important, right? Well, they finally realized that if areas are dirty and you have waste, human and animal waste around, there's more problems for diseases. And so they developed a sanitation system to get rid of the waste. Huge, right? Huge into fighting disease. Claudius Galen, he lived from 129 to 199 AD, and he, at this point, figured out that dissection was the key to understanding the body. Even then, though, he could only dissect animals. He did use pulse as a diagnostic tool. So to see how fast that heart was beating or what, the pulse at this point in ancient Rome was used for diagnostics. And we still use it today. Yep, one of the first things you do when you go in for vitals is to see how fast your heart is pumping. Moving on to the Dark and Middle Ages. So this is between 400 to 1400 AD. And those others probably had dates. Might have to run back and check those dates and put them in. Not so important the dates, but just to know which one came in order, okay? So in the Dark and Middle Ages, the study of medicine stopped for over 1,000 years, okay? So this was just a hard time. It was just hard to stay alive with diseases and other things happening, right? And so really the study of medicine stopped for over 1,000 years, except in monasteries and convents. So, the monks and the nuns. So they still studied some sort of this medicine and would help to take care of people. Also during this time, they used herbal medicines, more so than before, and experimented with even more and more types of herbs. Okay. They, if you remember, during the Dark Ages, that's where plagues and epidemics happened. The bubonic plague was horrible. There was an estimated 50 million people who died from the bubonic plague. And in Asia, Europe, and Africa, half of the population was gone, okay? Half of those populations. The song Ring Around the Rosies, Pocket Full of Posies, Ashes, Ashes, We All Fell Down was actually, we sing it with little kids, right? But it was actually a song written about the bubonic plague. And here, it's a little graphic, but here are some hands from somebody who had the plague, and their hands just turned black and kind of ashed away. That's what this song refers to. Okay, this is something that we do at school in classroom, where we watch the video and we talk about what helped things to spread it and what were list consequences, good and bad, of things that happened then. I think I'm going to show the video. This is the first time it worked when I clicked on a link, and it's going to, let's see if it's going to do it. It's thinking. It's saying contact the server for information, and it shouldn't be doing that. Okay. I'm going to figure out a good way, guys, to get our videos to show as we're playing. Okay. Oh, why is it still thinking? Okay, there we go. Oh. Let's see.
Imagine if half the people in your neighborhood, your city, or even your whole country were wiped out. It might sound like something out of an apocalyptic horror film, but it actually happened in the 14th century during a disease outbreak known as the Black Death. Spreading from China through Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and Europe, the devastating epidemic destroyed as much as 1/5 of the world's population, killing nearly 50% of Europeans in just 4 years. One of the most fascinating and puzzling things about the Black Death is that the illness itself was not a new phenomenon, but one that has affected humans for centuries. DNA analysis of bone and tooth samples from this period, as well as an earlier epidemic known as the Plague of Justinian in 541 CE, has revealed that both were caused by Yersinia pestis, the same bacterium that causes bubonic plague today. What this means is that the same disease caused by the same pathogen can behave and spread very differently throughout history. Even before the use of antibiotics, the deadliest outbreaks in modern times, such as the ones that occurred in early 20th century India, killed no more than 3% of the population. Modern instances of plague also tend to remain localized or travel slowly, as they are spread by rodent fleas. But the medieval Black Death, which spread like wildfire, was most likely communicated directly from one person to another. And because genetic comparisons of ancient and modern strains of Yersinia pestis have not revealed any significantly functional genetic differences, the key to why the earlier outbreak was so much deadlier must lie not in the parasite, but the host. For about 300 years during the High Middle Ages, a warmer climate and agricultural improvements had led to explosive population growth throughout Europe. But with so many new mouths to feed, the end of this warm period spelled disaster. High fertility rates combined with reduced harvests meant the land could no longer support its population, while the abundant supply of labor kept wages low. As a result, most Europeans in the early 14th century experienced a steady decline in living standards, marked by famine, poverty, and poor health, leaving them vulnerable to infection. And indeed, the skeletal remains of Black Death victims found in London show telltale signs of malnutrition and prior illness. The destruction caused by the Black Death changed humanity in two important ways. On a societal level, the rapid loss of population led to important changes in Europe's economic conditions. With more food to go around, as well as more land and better pay for the surviving farmers and workers, people began to eat better and live longer, as studies of London cemeteries have shown. Higher living standards also brought an increase in social mobility, weakening feudalism, and eventually leading to political reforms. But the plague also had an important biological impact. The sudden death of so many of the most frail and vulnerable people left behind a population with a significantly different gene pool, including genes that may have helped survivors resist the disease. And because such mutations often confer immunities to multiple pathogens that work in similar ways, research to discover the genetic consequences of the Black Death has the potential to be hugely beneficial. Today, the threat of an epidemic on the scale of the Black Death has been largely eliminated thanks to antibiotics. But the bubonic plague continues to kill a few thousand people worldwide every year. And the recent emergence of a drug-resistant strain threatens the return of darker times. Learning more about the causes and effects of the Black Death is important, not just for understanding how our world has been shaped by the past. It may also help save us from a similar nightmare in the future.
Yay, it worked. Okay, now let's see if I can go back to our screen. Yep. Okay, awesome. So things that helped it spread, right? If you remember, it talked about the heat and exploding population growth, and less food for them. So they were in poor health. Their living conditions were horrible. And it was able to spread really fast. Consequences that half the population died. Good consequences, those that didn't die were the more healthy ones, right? And so they were the ones whose gene pools got to be passed down. And that's a whole nother exciting part about zoology that I go into in zoology, but I'll have to skip here. Okay, moving on. After this time, we get to the Renaissance, so 1400 to 1615 AD. This is the rebirth of science. You get medical schools, universities doing all kinds of research, new ideas about disease instead of accepting it as the will of God. So they realize that this is something physical within bodies that can be dealt with. The study of the body by dissection. So they actually started dissecting bodies in the Renaissance period. And guess who? Leonardo da Vinci was amazing. He studied and recorded the anatomy of the body. Here are some of his drawings that he drew. We know he's incredible in all different things in the Renaissance period, right? But seriously, his drawings of the body were incredible. And so this is a heart, and it's absolutely amazing. Also during this time was the invention of the printing press. So this made it available that books could be reproduced and studied. And so the monks, before this time, the monks would copy books in a monastery prior to the Renaissance. So they would actually have to write the things the monks would write so that they'd have more books that they could either spread on and preserve old books as they got old and couldn't read them. That you'd have this new copy. Okay, but now we have the printing press, right? So the first medical books could be published. The first one was published by Andreas Vesalius, and he lived from 1514 to 1564. Published the first medical books where you could get medical information like this out to so many new people. So we're going to stop here because from here we're going to be talking about influential people in medicine. You onliners at home, I'm going to figure out the best way to do this. In class, the students are making a poster. You can make a poster. We're gonna assign you somebody to do a poster on, okay? And either some sort of a picture of the person or of the thing that they made or their breakthrough in science, or okay? But I'll give you all that information. We'll have you do a poster too, and we'll do it the same with our kiddos. And I'll print it out and I'll put it up when we do our presentation in our classroom. I'll just do your presentation unless you want to do a presentation, a video presentation, and I'll show it in the class, and then I'll have your printed poster and I can put it up when we put theirs up too. That's an idea. So when we talk on Tuesday, you can help choose which one you want to do, and you can let me know whether or not you want to do a presentation that we can show in class. I would love that. That'd be so awesome. Because who knows, eventually maybe all of you guys will be doing this from home, right? And so we're going to have to do all this stuff somehow virtually. So crossing our fingers, we're really trying to stay in school. Let's do this. Let's stay in school. But if it ends up that way, you guys doing this at home will be blazing the path for us to show us the best way to do it. So, okay, that's it for History of Medicine. Hopefully you got all those notes. If not, you can go back, and you can also go back and watch the video without me speaking. You can just go straight back through the one that's on the regular health science page under the module for Unit 1. Okay, that's it. Love you guys. See you on one of our Google Meets this week.